There is something profoundly human about the way you look at your dog and see family. The way you talk to your cat like they understand every word. The way you celebrate their birthday with the same joy you would a child's. The way your heart breaks when they are sick as if a piece of you is dying too. People see it and they judge. They call it excessive, lonely, childish, a replacement for something real. But what they don't understand, what they can't see unless they have felt it themselves, is that the bond you share with your pet is not a substitute for human connection. It is its own kind of love, pure and uncomplicated, free from the layers of expectation and disappointment that come with loving people. Your pet does not ask you to be different. They do not criticize your choices, question your worth, or withdraw their affection when you fail to meet some invisible standard. They love you on your worst days, when you cannot get out of bed, when you are too anxious to speak, when the world feels too heavy to carry. They sit beside you in the silence, and somehow that is enough. And maybe that is why this bond runs so deep. Because in a world that constantly demands you to perform, to prove, to explain yourself, your pet asks for nothing except your presence. They see you, not the version of you that you show to the world, but the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. And they stay. And there is a psychology behind this that goes far beyond what people assume when they see you treat your pet like your child. It is not about loneliness in the way they think. It is about safety. It is about finding a relationship where love is not conditional, where you do not have to earn your place every single day, where you are wanted simply because you exist. For many people who form these deep bonds with animals, there is a history there, a pattern that started long before the pet came into their life. Maybe you grew up in a home where love felt unstable, where affection was given and taken away based on your behavior, your grades, your ability to keep the peace. Maybe you learned early that people leave, that they hurt you, that even the ones who are supposed to protect you can become the source of your pain. And so you built walls, not because you wanted to be alone, but because it felt safer than letting someone in, only to watch them walk away. But an animal, they do not know how to manipulate. They do not play games with your emotions. They do not say one thing and mean another. Their love is simple, and that simplicity feels like relief. Psychologists talk about attachment theory, about how the bonds we form in childhood shape the way we connect with others throughout our entire life. And what they have found is that people who struggle with human relationships, who have anxious or avoidant attachment styles, often form incredibly secure attachments with their pets. Because a pet does not trigger the same fear of abandonment that a person does. They do not have the capacity to reject you in the way a parent, a partner, or a friend can. When you come home, they are there. When you are sad, they notice. When you need comfort, they offer it without you having to ask. And for someone who has spent their life feeling like they are too much or not enough, that kind of consistent presence is healing in ways that talk therapy and self-help books can never fully capture. It rewires something inside you. It teaches you that you are worthy of love not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And that lesson, as simple as it sounds, is revolutionary for someone who never learned it as a child. But there is another layer to this, and it is one that people rarely talk about because it feels too vulnerable, too raw. The truth is, loving a pet like a child is not just about what they give you. It is also about what you get to give them. For many people who treat their pets this way, there is a deep need to nurture, to care for something, to feel needed in a way that is not demanding or draining. Maybe you never had children by choice or by circumstance. Maybe you did have children, but the relationship is complicated, distant, painful. Maybe you grew up taking care of everyone else, parentified too young, and now you crave a form of caregiving that feels different, that does not come with resentment or obligation. Your pet allows you to pour love into something without the weight of expectation. You can spoil them, protect them, prioritize their needs, and there is no guilt, no judgment, no voice in your head saying you are doing it wrong. And that freedom, that permission to love fully without fear, is something many people have never experienced with another human being. And I need to pause here for a moment and ask you something. Do you feel guilty for how much you love your pet? Do people in your life make you feel like you care too much? Like you are being ridiculous for the way you treat them? If the answer is yes, I want you to leave a comment down below. It can be something simple like "my pet is my family." Because when you share that, You are not just validating your own experience. You are also making someone else who is reading feel less alone in theirs. And I will tell you something. Leaving that comment is an act of courage. It is you saying out loud that this love matters, that it is real, that it deserves to be honored. So go ahead, comment, and know that I read every single one of them. Now let me continue. There is also something happening on a neurological level that science is only beginning to fully understand. When you interact with your pet, when you pet them, look into their eyes, hear them purr, or see their tail wag, your brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone that floods a mother's body when she holds her newborn baby, the same chemical that bonds humans to each other in moments of deep connection. Your brain does not differentiate between the love you feel for a pet and the love you feel for a human child. It processes both as real, as valid, as life-sustaining. And this is why the grief of losing a pet can feel just as devastating, just as world-shattering, as losing a person. Because in your brain, in your heart, in the structure of your daily life, they were not just an animal. They were your companion, your comfort, your reason to get up in the morning. And when they are gone, the emptiness they leave behind is not small, it is enormous. But society does not give you the same space to grieve a pet the way it does a human. You are expected to move on quickly, to get another one, to not take it so hard. And this invalidation adds another layer of pain, because now you are not only mourning the loss of your pet, you are also carrying the shame of being told your grief is disproportionate, that you're being too sensitive, that it was just a dog, just a cat, just a bird. But the people who say these things have never known what it is like to have an animal be the only stable, safe, unconditionally loving presence in your life. They have never experienced coming home to an empty house and feeling the absence like a physical weight in your chest. They have never understood that for some people, a pet is not a luxury or a hobby. It is a lifeline. And this is where we need to talk about something that makes people uncomfortable, but is undeniably true. For many individuals who treat their pets like children, there is often a disconnect or a wound in their human relationships. This is not a judgment. It is an observation rooted in psychology and lived experience. Maybe you have been hurt so many times by people that trusting them feels impossible. Maybe you have tried to build connections, to let people in, but every time you do, they prove that your walls were there for a reason. Maybe you are neurodivergent and find social interactions exhausting, confusing, filled with unspoken rules that everyone else seems to understand except you. Maybe you struggle with anxiety or depression, and the thought of maintaining friendships, of showing up for people, of being perceived, feels like too much. Your pet does not require you to be anything other than yourself. They do not need you to text back, to make plans, to explain why you canceled. They just need you to be there. And that simplicity, that lack of social performance, is why the bond feels so safe. But here's the part that is both beautiful and painful. While the love you share with your pet is real and valid and healing, it can also become a way to avoid the harder work of human connection. Not because you are weak or broken, but because it is easier. It is easier to love something that will never betray you, never leave you by choice, never say the words that cut deepest. And if you have been hurt enough times, that makes sense. It is a survival mechanism. But it can also keep you stuck in a pattern where you give all your emotional energy to your pet and none to yourself, where you use their presence as a reason not to face the loneliness underneath, where you tell yourself that you do not need people because you have them. And while that might feel true in the moment, the reality is that humans are wired for connection with other humans, not as a replacement for the love you share with your pet, but as a complement to it. You can love your pet deeply, and also work toward building safe relationships with people. These things are not mutually exclusive. And I know that is hard to hear because maybe you have tried. Maybe you have put yourself out there and been let down over and over. Maybe the idea of trusting another person feels impossible right now, and that is okay. Healing is not linear. It does not have a timeline. But part of that healing is recognizing that the love you give your pet, the patience, the forgiveness, the unconditional acceptance, those are things you deserve to give yourself too. You deserve to reparent the parts of you that never felt safe, that never felt chosen, that learned to shrink and hide to avoid being hurt. And your pet, in their own way, is teaching you how. They are showing you what it looks like to be loved without conditions, to be wanted without having to perform, to be enough exactly as you are. And if you can internalize that lesson, if you can start offering that same grace to yourself, then the relationship you have with your pet becomes not just a source of comfort, but a model for how you can begin to heal your relationship with yourself and eventually with others. There is also a cultural layer to this that cannot be ignored. In many modern societies, traditional family structures are shifting. People are having children later, or not at all. They are living alone more than any generation before them. The nuclear family model that dominated for so long is no longer the default. And with that shift comes a redefinition of what family means. For many, family is not about blood or marriage or children. It is about who shows up, who stays, who loves you through the hard parts. And if that is your pet, then they are your family. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing sad or lesser about it. It is simply a different way of structuring your life, one that prioritizes emotional fulfillment over societal expectation. And the fact that this makes some people uncomfortable says more about their rigidity than it does about your choices. In fact, research shows that people who have strong bonds with their pets often report higher levels of life satisfaction, lower levels of stress, and better overall mental health than those who do not. Pets provide routine, purpose, and a reason to care for something outside of yourself. They force you to get out of bed on the days when depression tells you to stay under the covers. They give you something to come home to when the world feels empty. They offer physical touch, which is something many people who live alone go without for long stretches of time. And that touch is proven to reduce cortisol, lower blood pressure, and increase feelings of safety and calm. So when someone questions why you treat your pet the way you do, understand that they are questioning something that is scientifically, psychologically, and emotionally beneficial to your well-being. They are questioning your survival mechanism, your source of joy, your chosen family, and you do not owe them an explanation. But you do owe yourself honesty, and that means asking yourself the hard questions. Am I using my pet as a way to avoid dealing with my fear of human connection? Am I pouring all my love into them because it feels safer than risking it with people? Am I okay with this dynamic? Or is there a part of me that feels lonely even with my pet by my side? These questions are not meant to make you feel guilty. They are meant to help you understand your patterns, to see where the love you give your pet is healing and where it might also be a shield. Because both can be true at the same time. Your pet can be your greatest source of comfort and also a reminder of what you are afraid to seek elsewhere. And recognizing that duality is the first step toward building a life where you do not have to choose between loving your pet and loving yourself enough to let other people in. And if you are sitting here feeling like every word I am saying is landing directly in your chest, if this video is making you realize things about yourself that you have been avoiding, then leave a like so I know this content is resonating, that it is worth continuing to talk about these topics that nobody else wants to address. Because this is the kind of conversation that changes lives, and your engagement tells me that you are ready for that change. Now let us talk about what healing actually looks like in this context. It does not mean loving your pet less. It does not mean forcing yourself into relationships you do not want or need. It means expanding your capacity for connection in a way that feels safe and authentic to you. It means recognizing that the qualities you love most about your pet, their loyalty, their presence, their lack of judgment, those are qualities you can look for in people too. Not everyone will have them, but some will. And finding those people requires you to be vulnerable, to take risks, to accept that not every connection will work out, but that does not mean you should stop trying. It also means doing the inner work of healing your attachment wounds, of understanding why you fear abandonment or intimacy, of learning how to communicate your needs instead of shutting down or running away. This is hard, messy, uncomfortable work. But it is the work that allows you to build relationships where you do not have to perform, where you can be yourself and still be loved, where you can experience with humans what you already experience with your pet. And part of that work is reparenting yourself, which is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but is rarely explained in a way that feels actionable. Reparenting means becoming the adult you needed when you were a child. It means offering yourself the comfort, validation, and safety that you did not receive growing up. When you feel anxious, instead of criticizing yourself for it, you speak to yourself the way you would speak to your pet. Gently, kindly, with patience. When you make a mistake, instead of spiraling into shame, you remind yourself that you are learning, that you are human, that one error does not define your worth. When you feel lonely, instead of numbing it or distracting yourself, you sit with it, you acknowledge it, you ask yourself what you need in that moment, and then you give it to yourself. Maybe that is a walk, a hot bath, a phone call to someone safe, or simply curling up with your pet and letting their presence be enough for now. Reparenting is not about fixing yourself because you are not broken. It is about learning to take care of yourself the way you take care of the beings you love most. There is also something powerful about recognizing that your pet, in all their innocence and simplicity, is a mirror. They reflect back to you the parts of yourself that you have learned to hide from the world. When you look at them, you see unconditional love, and that is because you are giving it. You are capable of that depth of care, that level of devotion, that fierce protection. And if you can give it to them, you can learn to give it to yourself. You can learn to protect your own peace the way you protect theirs. You can learn to prioritize your own needs the way you prioritize theirs. You can learn to forgive yourself the way you forgive them when they make a mess or wake you up in the middle of the night. They are teaching you every single day what love without conditions looks like. And the question is, are you willing to turn that love inward? Because here's the truth that nobody tells you. You can have the most loving, loyal, perfect pet in the world, and you can still feel empty. You can still wake up some mornings and feel the weight of loneliness pressing on your chest. You can still look around your life and wonder if this is all there is. And that is not because your pet is not enough. It is because you are human, and humans need more than one source of connection to feel whole. You need relationships with people who challenge you, who grow with you, who see your complexity and do not run from it. You need friendships where you can be vulnerable and messy and still be accepted. You need to feel like you matter to someone in a way that goes beyond caregiving, in a way that is reciprocal and dynamic and sometimes difficult, but ultimately fulfilling. And you deserve to have that, not as a replacement for the love you share with your pet, but as an expansion of it. And maybe right now you are not ready for that. Maybe the wounds are still too fresh, the fear still too loud, the walls still too high. And that is okay. There is no rush. There is no timeline. Your pet will be there, loving you through every stage of this process, giving you the safety you need to eventually take the risk of letting someone else in. And when you do, when you finally find people who can hold space for you the way your pet does, it will not diminish what you have with them. It will only add another layer of richness to your life. Because love is not a finite resource. The more you give, the more you have. The more you open yourself to connection, the more you realize how much you are capable of both giving and receiving. So if you are someone who loves your pet like a child, who talks to them like they understand, who plans your life around their needs, who feels judged for the depth of your bond, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not pathetic. You are not avoiding real life. You are loving in the way that feels safest to you right now. And that is valid. Your pet is not a replacement for human connection. They are a teacher, a mirror, a source of healing that is preparing you for the day when you are ready to risk your heart again. And until that day comes, it is okay to find your family in the creature who curls up beside you at night, who greets you at the door like you are the most important person in the world, who asks for nothing except your presence. That love is real. It is powerful. It is transformative. And it is enough for now. And if you have made it this far, if you have felt every word of this video in your bones, then I want to invite you to something bigger than just watching videos. I want to invite you to be part of a community that understands what it is like to love deeply, to feel misunderstood, to be working through wounds that most people cannot see. This channel is a space where we talk about the psychology behind the things that hurt, the patterns that keep us stuck, the truths that nobody else wants to say out loud. Every week, I bring new content on emotional healing, self-awareness, relationships, and mental health, always with the same depth and honesty. If you want to keep going on this journey with me, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This is not just about consuming content. It is about being part of something that sees you, that gets it, that reminds you that you are not alone in this. So subscribe, and let us keep doing this work together. Because at the end of the day, the relationship you have with your pet is sacred. It is a bond that has held you through your darkest moments, that has given you a reason to keep going when everything else felt meaningless. And while it is important to recognize where this love comes from, to understand the psychology behind it, to be honest about what you might be avoiding, it is equally important to honor it, to stop apologizing for it, to stop letting other people make you feel guilty for choosing a life that looks different from theirs. Your pet is not less than a child. They are a soul that chose you, that depends on you, that loves you in a way that is pure and uncomplicated and desperately needed in a world that is anything but. And you are allowed to treat them like the family they are, to celebrate their presence in your life, to grieve them when they are gone with the same intensity you would grieve any loved one. Because that is what they are, loved. And so are you.